Hi, second grade, I'm back, and today I'll be sharing with you Spring After Spring. How Rachel Carson inspired the environmental movement by Stephanie Roth Sisson. And just like we talked about at the beginning, during the months of April and May, especially April, we focus on environmental and Earth Day and how to make the earth a better place to live. And Rachel Carson is somebody a long time ago that already had that in her mind. And after the book, I've included a little video or information about her. And here's the inside of the book cover. In nature, nothing exists alone. Rachel Carson, that's a quote. That's something exactly that she said. In nature, nothing exists alone. What do you suppose that means? Does it mean the spider can make the web, but it depends on branches or something to hold it up? What about birds? They depend on materials for their nests, food from the ground. Yeah. So in nature, nothing exists alone. Cheerily, it was dawn when the chorus began. Do you suppose that means there was really people singing outside? No. It was dawn. What time of day is that? Early in the morning. I sure have been hearing the birds sing at my house in the morning. Rachel did not want to miss a note. And here are all the sounds. Look. Pew, pew. Ah, ah. Ooh, ooh. Julie, choo-choo. Hello, she said. Chirp, chirp. Chitty, chitty. Dip, 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 dip. As the midday sun warmed the earth, other musicians chimed in. Life and music were all around. Have you ever thought about it that way, friends? Those sounds outside being music? And wonders big and small. Spring was Rachel's favorite time of the year. As the sun set, she could hear the first bubbles of frog song. Crickets began their nighttime tune, and bats squeaked a lullaby. At home, there was warm supper and a big family. Mom played the piano, and Dad sang songs and read stories. Rachel's favorites were those about the sea. As the days grew longer and warmer, the chattering, chirping, and hooting got louder. Until the gathering called the migrating birds meant that it was autumn. They were coming together for their long journey through the ocean of air to their winter homes. But not everyone left. Burrows underground for those that stay and hibernate. Snuggled under a warm blanket, Rachel drew pictures and wrote about the life she experienced all year. She read books about animals and imagined what their lives were like. You know, on my way to work this morning, I saw a rabbit hopping in my neighborhood. I wonder what it was thinking or what it was doing. Do you ever wonder that? Rachel wondered a lot. All right, look at this. I'm going to turn this one. Spring after spring, year after year, the birds arrived. Every season, Rachel watched, listened, and wrote. And like the nestlings, she grew quickly. Then one autumn, it was time for her to go off to college. She was sure she wanted to be a writer. until she looked through a microscope and saw a small world in a drop of water. Tiny sea plants and animals. Rachel was amazed and in love. She wanted to know more about the very small world made visible by a microscope. She'd never been to the ocean and was scared to go in the water. Have you ever been to the ocean? To learn about creatures in tidal pools, marshes, and the sea, Rachel decided that she would study biology, and she put her writing aside. And friends, on this map of the world, on this globe, here is Florida. And if you travel up the coast, right up here where she goes is to Maine. And you know, one year when I went to Maine, we go every year as a family, I found the Rachel Carson Preserve. And you could walk along the little trails and see some of the things that she studied in real life. So is this a picture book that is a story, or is it a picture book that gives us information? If you said picture books that gives us information, you're right. It's not quite a biography about her whole life, but it is a book about Rachel Carson and the work she did for the environment. After she finished school, Rachel worked as a scientist and compiled information about the ocean. Now, for her job, she wanted to know what it was like to actually be underwater. She was still scared, but she went anyway. In the fish world, many things are told by sound waves. Rachel began to write books about the sea. They were so full of scientific detail and vivid description of the lives of sea creatures that people could imagine those words. So one of them said, under the sea wind, the island lay in shadows only a little deeper than those that were swiftly stealing. What that means above is that she wrote with such detail that it was like you were right there with her. She became a famous author. But then something went wrong. Look at those fish, they've changed. All around, nature's voices were getting quiet. Look how she used the illustrations in this book, the illustrator, to demonstrate or to show us that things were disappearing. Why do you suppose that's the case? So Rachel did what she did best. She watched closely, listened carefully, and learned as much as she could about what was happening. She put together scattered facts and found the answer. You see an airplane in the sky. She did some research. Those fish, unfortunately, are dead. She made some phone calls. She read a lot of books. What do you think she found out? People wanted to kill bugs that ate their plants, bothered them, and sometimes even made them sick. Chemists created poison to solve insect problems that seemed to work and seemed to be harmless to others and humans. But these poisonous chemicals were quickly used everywhere in huge amounts because people thought they were safe. But Rachel found evidence that the poisons were not safe. So sometimes when we want to get rid of different bugs that hurt our plants, they make something to spray on them, but unfortunately sometimes what they make is not good for other wildlife. Poison eaten by microscopic water life. Here's a big circle. Water life is then eaten by tiny fish. The tiny fish are caught by bigger fish. Bigger fish are caught by eagles. Eagles lay eggs. Sometimes the fox that eats the birds, mice, and other animals that have eaten the poison, and then it makes them sick. So that's what Rachel discovered. Rachel wrote a book to tell people what she learned. It was called Silent Spring. Silent Spring created a huge ruckus. You know what that means? Lots of people didn't like it. Some people were inspired to change, but many people did not believe Rachel. Why are they putting them everywhere? People said. Are they the only answer? So that means, isn't there something else we can do? Are they sure they're safe? Do we have to use so much? And then other people saying, they are safe. You can trust us. Eventually, President Kennedy took notice and began to investigate to find out if it was true. Rachel was asked to come to Washington, D.C. to talk about her work. She was scared, but she went. You know, a word that comes to mind for Rachel Carson is determined. Rachel's testimony in Washington and her writing in Silent Spring made people see that the effect on the environment and other creatures they share the world with. People were inspired to speak up. Congress passed new laws so nature was treated with more care, and some of the most harmful chemicals were banned. Spring after spring, year after year, people celebrated the earth and the environment because Rachel showed them how beautiful and precious it is. But Rachel went home and continued watching and listening. In the morning, she went out among the tide pools and gathered specimens, so like evidence. In the afternoon, she studied them and took notes and observations. And in the evening, when the tide had gone out again, she returned with each creature and put them back where she found it, exactly where it belonged. And then the author shares something. The author said, I have loved Rachel Carson's writing, especially her books about the wonders of nature, where she writes so poetically about science. But her most famous book, Silent Spring, is hard for me to read because it's a warning that what happens to the environment when people are not careful. And then in the back of this book, the author gives where she got her information. Sometimes we don't look at that very closely, but she did a lot of research to write this book. This book's birthday was in 2018. And let's see, if we looked close enough, sometimes it tells us what the illustrations are, but this one does not. It does give a special thank you to the author's dear friend and great admirer of Rachel Carson, Sharon Lovejoy. Also, a big thank you to Catherine Jacobs for her guidance and on this special project. And then, as human beings, we are part of the whole stream of life. If you picked one thing from this book for a lesson it was trying to teach, what would you say? Just think about that. I think I would say we have to be respectful of the environment. All right, friends, we're going to be sharing some books about the environment in Earth Day over the next few weeks. I hope your weekend is super awesome and fantastic, just like you. Bye for now.